Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mike McConnell. I'm the CEO of EZFill Holdings Inc. And I'm also joined up here with our CFO, Arthur Levine, as well. Happy to go over the EZFill story for you today, and it's a great way to start this presentation with this as a slide to say, never pump fuel again, and I'll explain what that means as I take you through the EZFill story. Who we are. So EZFill brings the gas station to you, and it really is fundamentally that simple. From the consumer side, it's a change and a different way of getting fuel the way you do it today. We're a Miami-based business. We started in March of 2019. We went public in mid-September, around September 17th, raised close to $29 million. In the last 6 months or so, we've been focusing on using those IPO proceeds as far as a growth story, expanding and investing into the growth and really scaling the operation. The next slide will really talk about investment highlights of some key trends that are really favorable for mobile fueling. There's a big shift in the industry. The fueling industry is about a $500 billion industry that is really ripe for innovation. Gas stations have been on the decline for decades. They'll continue to be as the EVs continue to grow. That'll continue to put pressure on gas stations. But technology really hasn't come into the fueling world. The last big change was in the mid-'80s when you introduced credit card readers to the pumps. Self-service is really unchanged since then. This on-demand platform is really ripe to change away and give people choice in how they get fueling. The opportunity, we're the first company, we're a first mover advantage in this space. You know, there's nobody else that's been in the public arena yet, so we're looking to take advantage of that as a first mover. The business model is really about three different segments. It's about fleets, consumers, and specialty. Specialty for us is marine, landscape, generators, tanks, and those kind of things as well. EZFill is an expansion story. We're based here in Miami as a launch pad, but we're strategically expanding, and I'll show you the expansion map and also a unique opportunity that we have in New York, which is our near-term plan. We've got a very experienced management team. I'll take you through the management team and also the board of directors toward the end of the presentation. Extremely well-heeled and experienced team. And then we've got a robust network of delivery vehicles. Pre-IPO, we had about 13 trucks. By the end of 2022, we'll have 48 trucks delivering in our fleet. So this is really the market opportunity that sets it up really well, and why we say the on-demand product is really now the new standard. And the reason that I like this slide so much is the fueling industry fits in here extremely well and shows you the opportunity that's really in front of us. So you can see transportation, meals, groceries, and fuel. These are things that are everyday consumable items for customers. They do it daily, weekly as part of their everyday purchasing cycle. And now the on-demand platform has really changed this, and it's become the new standard for how we do it. Transportation, before Uber and Lyft, there was one way to really catch a cab. Meals, there was only one way to really do takeout, right, until Grubhub and DoorDash. Groceries, you go to the grocery store. Instacart has fundamentally changed that. We think that same thing can exist utilizing the on-demand platform, which we didn't invent, and consumers have really embraced it. Utilize that platform now instead of going to the gas station to be able to get fuel. So traction to date, as I said, we started in March of 2019. We've added 15 new fleet accounts since the IPO in September. We've got an 80% customer retention in our subscription service. We've done over 4.2 million gallons delivered to date and over 12 million in revenue. As we stand today. Start talking about the different consumer opportunities that we have. We have a diversified base. We've got commercial, consumer, and specialty. Commercial is the biggest part of our revenue. If you had to divide our revenue up, about 80% of it comes from commercial, which makes sense in the fleet side. The remaining 20% is on consumer and specialty. But commercial is the largest percent. We have a field team that goes out and calls on these and sets up these accounts, which is what we've just started with some of the IPO proceeds, is hiring a sales team. Consumer is done via the download on the app. It's extremely intuitive. It was designed to really stay on it the least amount of time possible, but it's super efficient and super intuitive and a very easy way to get fuel delivered and scheduled. And especially are things like marine, construction, agriculture, but it's an opportunity basically. Anyone that requires fuel or any business that requires fuel is a potential customer of ours. So let's talk about the market opportunity. A lot in the headlines today about electric vehicles and that taking over and internal combustion engine cars going away. That simply isn't true. There are decades worth of demand for fueling and will continue to be so. You can see the 143 billion gallons a year of U.S. motor fuel consumed. The average number of registered vehicles on the commercial side is about 121 million, 276 million vehicles registered on the consumer side. 97% of the vehicles manufactured gas and diesel in 2021. And there's a quote here recently from the CEO of VW stating that despite the evolution of EVs, internal combustion engine vehicles are going to stay on the road. So people, because of all the headlines, think that EVs are going to take over. They're going to continue to grow for sure, but the demand for gas-powered vehicle and diesel-powered vehicles is going to remain for quite a while. So now the opportunity, if you look at this $500 billion industry that we talked about and how that stacks up with food delivery, grocery, and mobile fuel, you can see the little orange bar is just the year-over-year growth change in the food delivery business. Year-over-year growth of over 17 billion, 20%. Grocery sales, the on-demand platform, year-over-year growth of over 40% with 35 billion. And then mobile fueling is just now starting, but we're estimating it to be 100% growth at 200 million year-over-year as the on-demand platform takes hold. So commercial, this is the biggest part of our revenue, as I said earlier. And we fuel fleets at night so they're ready to go the next day. It's an R2B, return to base business, as we talked about. So extremely good benefits in fleet accounts. We haven't lost a fleet account since I've been with the company. The business case is rock solid, especially if they're using fleet cards or they're taking individual trips to the gas station today. Getting us to take over your fleet account is an actual no-brainer from a business perspective. Increase route capacity, reduce driver downtime, reduce impact on cost, reduce emissions, and you eliminate unauthorized use of fuel cards if you're using fuel cards today. Typical profile of a corporate client, we have a multinational online retailer. We're not allowed to say their name. You can probably guess who they are. Essential services, delivery companies, rental car companies, governmental agencies. The key here is a very diverse base of different types of fleet customers. Some of the growth initiatives that we've done pre-IPO, we had no sales team, so we've had 2 salespeople. We've just hired another for the Tampa and Orlando market that we're expanding into. We've added 15 plus fleet accounts since the IPO. We're leveraging our existing fleet customers that have multiple sites. So for instance, people in Miami also have locations in other markets as well, as far as Orlando and Tampa, etc. The next is the consumer side. So the consumer, again, is done. You can order delivery either at home or at work. You don't have to be there. You just have to put your gas cap ajar. You can be completely asleep and your car will be filled in the morning. You'll get an automatic receipt via your credit card, and you'll be notified exactly what's happened as far as getting your vehicle fueled. So we do a lot of work, single-family homes, condominiums, subdivisions. We do gas at work a lot here that people don't realize as we're turning back to the office. Corporate campuses, office buildings, some of our clients are down below. So in Miami here, Telemundo and Carnival have thousands of employees. We will go service their cars at work. So while they're at work, we can take their order and they can also subsidize this and do different things for their employees. So the specialty markets, as I show here, you can see the different types of fuel: Rec 90, off-road diesel, regular gas, and on-road diesel. Marinas and boat owners is probably our biggest contributor. We just signed and publicly announced another contract with a 200-boat marina. The marina business is huge here in South Florida. Also up the coast as we go through Tampa and up the East Coast to New York, it's a big piece of the business. So really we utilize technology a lot with the on-demand platform, and our business model is really fueled that way. So the on-demand and recurring orders, you can actually order once, for instance, every Wednesday at 5 o'clock, and just forget about it. You don't have to do it again after that. That'll be your order ongoing from that point forward. We direct source from the port or the fuel depots to get the most efficient cost. We use a lot of logistics and route optimization to use artificial intelligence and continue to refine the routes. And payment processing and user analytics, so we understand a lot with how people are paying. We can use push notifications, understand their behavior, and be able to communicate with our customer base. So growth strategies and market expansion, as I talked about earlier. So we had 13 trucks pre-IPO. We've ordered an additional 33, which we announced publicly. We've gotten about 21, 22 of those deliveries, but we think all of them will be done through Q4, and by the end of this year we should have about 48 trucks in our fleet. We've got a dedicated HR recruiter for station managers, dispatchers, and drivers, so exclusively dedicated to that part of the business. You may have read a lot with people that are challenged, especially in the trucking industry, on getting qualified drivers and those kind of things. And then new fueling partners allow us to expand to new markets, and I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail here. So these are the key plans for 2022. So go ahead and build upon our established market. Florida alone is a $20 billion fueling market. We expand in new markets. I'll talk about our Palmdale relationship. I'll talk about entering into the New York market and what the unique opportunity is there as well. We've got a relationship with over 30 commercial accounts, so we'll use a lot of those as springboards as we expand. They have multiple locations besides just in Miami. We'll go ahead and leverage those relationships as we expand in other markets as well. So I talked about this. A lot of what we're doing through our growth is acquisitions. There are a lot of small players out there. We did an acquisition of a company called Full, which is an affiliate of Palmdale Oil, which is a very large provider, fueling provider in the state of Florida. Part of that was acquiring Full, which included their trucks, customers, and their technology, a pretty small operation. But it also gave us access to Palmdale as one of our biggest fuel suppliers, so we had preferred fueling from them on pricing. But we also have access to all their locations for our trucks. So we have a turnkey operation from expansion to be able to put our trucks in some of their sites to fulfill these locations, because they also service Tampa, Orlando, all these locations that we're going to. So it was a great relationship for us as far as the Full acquisition for their mobile fueling company, but also the partnership that we have them as well. Getting into the New York market, so we've got a strategic license agreement with a company called Fuel Butler LLC. Fuel Butlers develop patent pending technology that may be approved for the use of mobile fueling in New York City. It is currently not allowed today, but the principals of Fuel Butler have been in the fueling industry for decades. They've got the right relationships with the regulatory agencies, the AHJ, and the fire marshals to possibly get this approved. We've already designed a tank with their input that meets some of the requirements that the fire marshal and the team want as far as fire mitigation, spill mitigation, all the key things you would want from a safety point of view. And again, this isn't approved today, and our hope is working with the regulatory agencies that we can get a pilot approved to be able to enter New York City. So New York City and Long Island, they've got over 39% of the registered vehicles in the state. And just to let you know, there's under 6 retail gas stations left in Manhattan. So if you've ever been in New York City, trying to find a gas station is virtually impossible. So it's a huge opportunity for us in New York City. Shows you a little bit of our revenue performance by quarter. You can see, except for a little small, almost flat in Q2 of 2020, we were able to grow our revenue each and every corner. And again, we didn't do any advertising pre-IPO, so the last 6 months or the last 2 quarters are really the only quarters where we've had additional actual marketing activities and salespeople activity to drive revenue. Coming up now to the end of the presentation here, just to focus again on the industry highlights. It's really a perfect marriage if you look at the shift, the on-demand platform, and utilizing that as far as opportunities that exist with retail fueling. So again, it's a $500 billion market that really hasn't been touched by technology yet. The opportunity as a first mover advantage, we think as a public company, having access to the public markets gives us an advantage to continue to grow and scale this. Great business model as far as getting from diversification and fueling with consumer, fleet, and the specialty markets. This is the growth story. It's a top-line growth story is what we're interested in and what we're driving for over the next couple of years. Management team, I'll show you the slides very quickly on that. And then we can open it up for questions. So this is our management team. Myself as CEO, I had 32 years as an executive with Nissan Motor Acceptance Corporation, automotive company, captive finance company. Michael DeVoe, our COO, has got 25 years in really the fueling industry. Rick Derry is going on 35 years. He's our downstream petroleum veteran. Started with Gulf Oil, and then Arthur, our CFO. This is the 3rd company that he's been able to take public, so we have the right people in governance and all the SEC requirements as far as a public company. Our board of directors is chaired by Al Weiss. Al had a 39-year career at Disney. His last position was president of worldwide operations for Disney. Lou Reyes has corporate and public experience. He was also a senior official for the White House. I think Mark Lev, president of Fenway Sports Management, so he can help us a lot in the branding and advertising world. And then Cheryl Hanrahan was our first COO, elected to leave but stay on and serve as a director as well. So an extremely well, diverse, experienced board and management team is behind EZFill as well. With that, I'll be happy to open it up to any questions that you may have. Sure.
I was just going to ask about your sort of business model. How do you expect to achieve profitability? It seems to be a low margin business and one of our services.
Sure.
Truck, gasoline around. Explain how you
Yep.
get profitable.
Sure. Well, you know, we've modeled out the trucks as far as from a revenue perspective using utilization factors of what we would think between two trips, and the trucks will generate a little north of $1 million a year in revenue. Probably the net of that is about 10%, about 100,000. So as we get more efficient through our purchasing and our operation, but it's important to note, you're right, it's a low margin, high volume business. So for us to really scale, we got to get over probably 100 million in revenue to start to get that break-even point and to really show profitability.
Is your company your own job?
I'm sorry?
Do you have your own job or ship?
Yes. Yep. Yep.
What's your gross profit margin?
Gross profit margin is about 10% right now as far as what our net is.
So the cost of the fuel obviously is above the line. So it costs about 90% of the direct expenses related to producing the
Yeah, Arthur.
CFO.
Sure, Arthur can take you through some of the more details if you want, for sure. Yeah, go ahead, Arthur.
Yeah, we prefer to look at our fuel margin as our key margin per gallon as our key metric, because the gross margin as a percentage of revenue is all over the place, just because, as I'm sure you've all noticed, fuel prices fluctuate wildly, and especially recently. So, you know, the fuel prices go way up, the fuel prices double, our gross margin as a percentage becomes 1/2. And the amount that we earn on each gallon remains primarily fixed, okay? And it doesn't matter whether it's the fleet business or the consumer business. And the fleet business, which is generally a markup over our cost, and the markup varies depending on the type of customer. It's a lower markup for the very large fleets, and a higher markup for the smaller ones, where it costs us a little more per gallon to service them. And on the consumer business, we aim to be competitive with local gas stations. So, our margin per gallon remains relatively constant, and even recently it has remained relatively constant despite the large increase in gas prices.
So 13 vehicles, I think, currently.
Yes.
Their plan is to get larger of those refueling vehicles, and how many cars or whatever SUVs can that service?
Yeah,
One truck.
great question. It's very new from a regulatory point of view, but wet hosing or the consumer side, the regulatory environment says 1,200 gallons max and 50 feet of hose. Now the commercial side in diesel, we can certainly get bigger trucks for the commercial part of the business, which could be 5,000 gallon trucks and those kind of things. So right now we're focused, everything's built for the most part on the consumer side, but definitely looking from the fleet side to get those bigger tankers and bigger drops. It's a different world between gas and diesel as far as the regulatory environment and consumer and fleet. So on the consumer side, though, you can't go above 1,200 gallons and 50 feet of hose right now.
What's the highest volume you've experienced per truck anywhere?
Highest volume as far as fueling?
Fueling.
In one drop? Well, in the boating industry, is the biggest one, marine. You'll be 700, 800, 900 gallons sometimes, where you have somebody just standing there for an hour, pumping gas. So the marine side of the business in marine is definitely, can be very profitable in large drops. And then also big tanks. So there are some people that have tanks that will come service, so you can get a large drop that way also. You've been trying a couple times.
Yeah, 2 questions.
Yes, sir.
Talk about the strengths and weaknesses of your company versus the competition. And then secondly, when you're pitching commercial accounts and they say no, what's the most common reason for that?
First question is, I think, one of our strengths is not many people are diversified as we are. There's a lot of people that are just concentrating on fleet, almost all of them, not many on the consumer side, which is really the most difficult part from a financial equation point of view, is the consumer side. So we're doing consumer, fleet, and the specialty. So the specialty side has also been a boon for us. And I'll use the pandemic as an example, right? When the consumer side maybe dropped, The fleet side picked up quite a bit from the delivery side, and also the marine side picked up quite a bit. So having those different avenues that we can service, that a lot of our competitors are not playing in those areas, I think gives us an advantage. As far as a fleet account, there's really two things that we're selling to from a fleet account. The most difficult one is probably somebody that already has a fuel provider, because then you're a conquest. So the conquest comes a lot of times if it's the right kind of margin, and can you accept that, and is that what you want to do from a high growth perspective? It usually comes down to that. Or we can service better. One of our advantages has been, as I said, technology has really been vacant in this industry. We've got some pretty good technology on the fleet side to give the fleet owner so they can understand their fueling by asset, what they're using, how to use it, which a lot of them don't get today. And then if somebody's using fuel cards, we will not lose that sale. I'm telling you, if we show them the benefits of going away from a fuel card to us, the benefits are immense. So the fleet side, we're extremely bullish about. We think there's great opportunities in there. I think that if we lose an account from the competitive side, it may be just because it's not the margin that we want to deal with right now, are the things that we're doing.
Are your fleet salespeople your own employees?
Yes, they are. Yep. Their own employees. Everybody's our own employee, right now. And our drivers are all CDL hazmat certified as well. Yes?
You're going to need additional capital. I know you raised money through Think Equities, but, and the stock was $4, now it's 90 cents.
Mm-hmm.
So, any need for additional capital also to stay on NASDAQ because you have $1 price?
Sure. Yeah, right now we're certainly we're planning to do another raise probably in 2023 right now, based upon our performance and where we're at and what we think we can do. Of course, we're going to continue to grow in these new markets. We're just now starting with Tampa and Orlando and some of these other areas. So, Arthur, you might want to touch on this as far as a future raise or those kind of things. So.
Yeah, I can't give a precise amount that we're looking for, but yeah, I think what Mike said is that probably at some point in 2023 we'll want to raise more money in order to continue our expansion. It's a capital-intensive business, and this is a business model that works well at scale, not at the revenue level that we're at now. And we've been growing. We've been doubling our revenue year over year, and as Mike said earlier, without advertising and promotion. And now that we're spending money on marketing, we're planning to do at least that, if not better. So yeah, this business works at scale, and we will improve we will reduce our cash burn as we grow somewhat larger. But we do expect to have to raise cash at some point.
Thank you, everybody. I think that concludes the presentation. We're happy to answer any other questions later on in the lobby, of course. Thank you.